Welcome back, and thank you for keeping it daybreak. In case you're just joining us, we want to start our conversation this morning as we talk about the state of security in the country. There's a new order at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. And of course, a few days ago, the Special Service Unit at the DCI was disbanded. We all know what led to that. Going by the remarks by the Deputy President, that is what we are going to be talking about. And we'll be discussing this with a panel of three gentlemen. Allow me to introduce them. And of course, we have in studio this morning Hussein Khalid. He is the Executive Director, Haki Africa. Thank you for creating time for us.
Thank you.
We have at the center there, Francis Maina is a security analyst.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. And of course, we also have in studio with us Dimas Kiprono, a programs manager at Amnesty International. Thank you.
And gentlemen, thank you for your time. To you, Dimas, programs manager at Amnesty International. The President spoke at length on Sunday and admitting that he ordered or called for the disbandment of the SSU, the Special Service Unit of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Were the calls made by the President satisfactory, especially to the families who are suffering because of enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings?
Well, the President began a very important conversation that we have been trying to have in this country for a very long time. A conversation about policing units, policing that does not follow the law, that operates within its own rules. And what he said was a move towards the right direction in terms of getting to a police service that has accountability, that is professional, and that is human rights compliant. The rules on use of force and firearms and lethal force are very clear under our laws. But we have seen through the numbers recorded by several organizations that there has been a tendency of some policing units, some law enforcement, because sometimes this happens even through KWS and other formations, to take the law into their own hands. And when this happens, we get people who disappear into thin air. Sometimes we find bodies in certain locations. Okay. But more worryingly, we find cases of people who are picked up and then they're found dead. This is not lawful. It does not comply with our international obligations. And so, apart from what the President said, we want to see accountability. We want to see investigations. Who created these units? Okay. Who do they answer to? Where do they get their orders? Are these orders written? Okay. Yeah. So we need more light into what the President has started. Yeah.
Hussein, how did you receive this news?
I think for us as human rights practitioners, and particularly those at the coast, we have been singing this song for way too long. That we have certain security units within this country that operate extra-legally, that operate above the law, that are not accountable. They, enjoy impunity of the highest order. And we have time and again called for the state to take action, because what we have been seeing over the years violates every local and regional and international human rights principles. So when we had this news, I think for us it was bittersweet. Bitter in that, we have now confirmed that we have security forces, and this is from the highest office in the land, formerly the second highest office in the land, who have been engaging in extrajudicial killings. These are the President's words. So it's bitter for us because these are individuals who are supposed to be protecting us, who are supposed to be there for us and, promote security in our country. But they were the ones behind the killings and the mass atrocities that we have been seeing in this country. So that was bitter to us. But it was also sweet, as, my colleague has said, because now it's no longer there. That, it's the first step in a number of steps that we expect to see in the coming days to try and bring some sense of closure to some of these families. Remember, we have women who don't know whether they have husbands or not. We have children who don't know whether their fathers are still alive. We have mothers who don't know whether they need to continue weeping or not. We've received a number of calls in the last couple of days asking us to follow through and ask these individuals, about their kin. Are they still alive? If they kill them, where did they bury them? Can they at least get to know what has happened? So it is sweet in that this unit no longer exists, and that, we can look forward to now to a better, more accountable security forces. But we are also saying those steps need to be taken, the next steps need to be taken sooner rather than later, so that we can fully address the issues that have been on the ground, particularly in communities at the coast, at Nairobi, in northeastern, that have really suffered at the hands of this unit.
Okay.
Mr. Maina, from where you sit, is the problem the unit, or there's a much bigger problem? Because I remember we had the flying squad, and that was disbanded, and then this was created. I mean, what is exactly the problem? Is it the unit that is being created? Is it the people that are serving in that unit, or what is it that we are looking at?
Good morning, viewers. First and foremost, I would like to open my remarks that the problem we have, it's quite very deep and very dangerous. In 1973, the president of Chile was overthrown by a dictator who thought fighting the communists was the order. And he was supported by that time by the CIA.
President Pinochet.
President Pinochet. He started with the people who he thought and who are labeled as communists. Once they got finished, he went to the doctors, the teachers, the journalists. Hundreds of thousands of Chileans lay dead by the time Pinochet was out of power. So in this one, it is started because the past administration, the office of the president, the minister for interior, did want to work hard. This was a very simple task. You just put the laws, go to parliament, lobby for laws that can protect the subject, the guys who have been subjected to be terrorists,
okay,
and the state. So that if you look at the American system, they arrested Khalid bin Sheikh in the year 2002. It is 20 years. He's still in prison. Nobody has harmed him. Rashid bin Rashid, he's been there since 2002.
All Guantanamo detainees.
Yeah, he's still there. Israel, they put people on personal detention for 1 year, renewable every year. They are terrorists, like in Israel, who have been in prison for 25 years. But their families can walk to their committee in Israel and get their family member there. So I don't see any explanation for the Matiang'i and Kibisho and the DCI. Our current president, those of us who are on Kenya Kwanza, has been talking about this issue for the last years and years. He called even the Director General of National Intelligence and asked him, how are young people just disappearing? And the people who commit heinous crimes, they're just walking scot-free. I have talked to some of my friends in Haki Africa. This thing of young people disappearing on the word of terrorism, me, I don't buy terrorism. I buy drugs. Because these young people, if you ask them, what are you fighting for? They don't want to secede from Kenya in coast, neither northeastern, neither Nairobi. You don't see anything. But you can see in a distance, drug kingpin enjoying a lot of money,
okay,
and creating a confusion so that they script those in drug, in the drug business. Okay. They went for training in Colombia. The Colombians, we had the FARC, we had the FLN. They were fighting from 1961. If you ask anybody in the FLN, even in the FARC, what do you fight the government of Colombia? They don't know.
Okay.
Because to them, they try to create a fight between the government and where they secure the drug manufacturers are manufacturing cocaine for export. And if you look at the coast of Kenya, 30% of the world's heroin passes through Mombasa.
Okay.
So that, to me, that is my bone of contention.
Right.
It is some people who have put in security operators to destroy young people for others to do business.
So is disbanding the special service unit?
It was long overdue. It was long overdue, but it needs a cabinet-level memo, the president to put up a commission of independent-minded Kenyans, people of integrity, to go down to look at where my friends Akina Mwenda Bijiwe, we used to come with him here.
Okay.
Nobody knows where Mwenda Bijiwe went. People have disappeared. Lawyers have disappeared. People have been paying for their economic enemies to be taken away, and nobody knows where. You hear lawyers, they did a deal of lands. He's never been seen for 2-3 years. You see, there is a lot of murky waters in OP, Matiang'i, and Kebicho. They have given Kenyans. People are crying. Women have no wives, have no husbands.
Okay.
I mean, families have no fathers. Mothers have no sons, brothers, friends. You see, we need to get to the bottom so that people pay the ultimate price, so that next time when you have such an issue, if you feel like the DCI, you are not getting an watertight law, you go to Parliament. There is a Department of Security Committee in Parliament. Go to them, explain to them, ask us. We shall give you elaborated and supportive information that we are able to protect the Kenyans from the suspects to the good citizens of this country.
Because there are recommendations to that effect by a joint report, Haki Africa, Amnesty International, and other organizations that lobby for human rights in the country and the advancement of the same. But Demias, when this communication comes from the President of the Republic, who is the Commander-in-Chief as well,
yes,
does it also point, when he says or links the SSU, which is now disbanded, to extrajudicial killings, citing Rivayala? He was the Deputy President, now the President. And at some point, he even said that he was locked out of key security meetings, I mean, admitting to that. But when the President says that it is this unit which is responsible for killings of Kenyans, does it not, on the other end, on the flip end, point to dysfunctionality in the government and who orders who and who ordered the SSU to kill Kenyans?
And yes, it does. And that is why we are asking for a commission of inquiry, because this is such a deep issue. We've had a history of creating units for special purposes, and then in terms of terms and conditions that we give them, we apparently give them a free hand to do whatever they want to Kenyans, as long as they deal with the issue at hand. And that is why, as you had mentioned earlier, we had the Kwekwe Squad. We've had others like the Flying Squad. But the approach to fighting crime, in which you eliminate people instead of investigating, prosecuting, which is usually combined with intelligence, gathering of evidence, really does not do justice to anyone, because it just perhaps makes Kenyans feel like they're becoming safer, but they're not, because crime has persisted. We are told by the government every year that we have these new gangs going on. I remember before the election, there was a list of gangs that were listed by the government. So how come we are not investigating these criminal organizations to ensure that we deal with them using our criminal justice system, yet we want to justify removing them from society in an extrajudicial manner? This muddies the waters, because now even criminals can start disappearing people, and people will think it is the police who did it. You understand?
So there's a vacuum of doubt created.
There's a vacuum of doubt created. Our mechanisms, for example, occurrence books, which is supposed to account for people whenever they are arrested, they are not used. We know in certain areas here in Nairobi where rogue police officers, and this is not now, these are not members of that unit. These are other police officers who arrest you and keep you for a day and then finally execute you. And perhaps that informs that piece that you had shown earlier of the mothers and the wives in Mathare who actually know how their kin died. It was not a shootout.
Okay.
They were picked up and eliminated. And so when the president says that, we say, let's move it further, let's have a commission of inquiry, let's sit down and find out what is this that we cannot do using the law.
All right. There's an interesting report that I'll call it an umbrella body of organizations came up with that dubbed Delayed Justice. Interesting facts coming out from this particular report. And I'd just like to, get your perspective on a general way, Hussein, in terms of the trends we are picking with these extrajudicial killings. What are we looking at in terms of numbers? How bad is the problem?
The numbers are huge. We belong to a network together, Haki Africa, Amnesty, the Missing Voices. And in the last 4 years, we have over 650 police-related killings. And these statistics are there. They are open for everyone. And one of the reasons why we decided to come up with Missing Voices is because every time one institution came up with figures, you know, the state would doubt that. They would point fingers and say, oh, you're saying 10, he is saying 50, he is saying 30. So we came together, Haki Africa, Amnesty, and others, and decided let's do this collectively so that we confirm these statistics and we present them to the state to show them that what is happening in this country is unacceptable. So those figures, we have evidence, we can confirm, we have testimonies, we have statements and all that. So we are looking at over 600 Kenyans who were killed in a span of less than 4 years. And this year, as we are, we are counting, it's much worse compared to last year. If you look at what happened in Rivayala, for example, those were over 40 bodies. And the problem is that, in the past regimes, every time you came up with this information and you shared and you told the state, you need to do something about this, the first thing they always did was to refute these claims. When it was so evident, when we went, we saw bodies with our own eyes in Rivayala. But the police spokesperson the next day came up and said, it is not true. You are refuting claims that everyone can see, that communities tell you we see pro-box vehicles and double cabin pickups, which are usually associated with the police service, coming in the dead of the night, in the wee hours, early morning hours when children are rushing to school for preps, at 4, at 5, stopping at the river and openly dumping bodies in the river. These are facts that are out there, and we are happy now because we have institutions that are supposed to be dealing with these issues. Okay. But our main concern was that in the past there was a lack of political will. Now, this statement coming from the president, for us, we believe that sets the ball rolling. For further investigations, as Dismas has suggested, we need that commission of inquiry to look into these issues. Because, for example, at the coast, when these operations happen, and the next morning you go to the police station and tell them, why did you do this? The local command have no idea of what had happened the previous night in their own jurisdiction. So you will see clearly that this unit was operating over and beyond the normal command, because the police stations there, the OCSs, the OCPDs, usually have no idea. In fact, when we go to report, they're actually hearing that from us. They're asking us questions, where? What happened? Because they don't know. So these units come, they do what they do, they leave almost immediately, and even the local command does not understand what has happened. So I think the time has come just to respond. The figures are overwhelming, and I think, as my colleagues have said, we need that commission of inquiry so that we can confirm truly how bad is the situation. These figures that we are giving, those are just figures that we have as institutions. And I'm sure there are many more out there who have not even come forward. Maybe they're even afraid of doing that. Okay.
If I add on top of my brother here, there's a certain Turkish national, was it last year but one? He had applied for asylum because he was wanted in Istanbul by the government of President Erdogan. And being in a foreign country, I've been to the US, I've been got asylum, you treated with humility. If you forward yourself to the immigration of that country and say you would like to seek protection because of being persecuted, because of them being so nasty, they gave up that guy to the Turkish Special Forces. They came for him at the airport. He appeared in Turkey, Istanbul, chained, because probably some people were making money. And probably,
then Francis, is there an extradition agreement between Kenya?
But you have not gone through the court to be extradited.
So the due process was here, from your analysis, has been overlooked?
It was overlooked because probably the people within the OP, the security administration, they believe what they said, Matiang'i and his friends, it was final. We had a president who was off hands on his business. So he just used to hear, probably. Because you see, how can you just pick me up from Indiana put me on a plane, I just appear in committee. There's something wrong. Even Americans from Mexico, I mean, even the drug cartels in Mexico, like El Chapo, he went through the due process of Mexico to be extradited to New York for drug trafficking. You see, even them, they obey the rule of law. What we've been having here is 3, 4, 5 individuals who think they own the state, and they were the state.
Okay, so in your view, there was a very blatant breach of the law.
Exactly. They operated, I mean, without due respect.
But because we're just about to take a break, but before we do that, I mean, you're talking about some very pertinent issues. But this issue of extrajudicial killings has cut across way even before President Uhuru Kenyatta or the former Interior CS, Dr. Fred Matiang'i. It's an issue that has been there. So do you say that it's still...
But you see, we've tried to address it. Me also, I do human rights activism.
But you do agree it's not just about...
But for the last 4 years, it became pandemic. Anybody would disappear. Some guys in Mombasa, 4 of them, they disappeared between Mariakani and Voi. The bodies appeared in Thika morgue. You can imagine the torture. You know, you go into your own business, they were called to come and buy a matatu in Thika. But between Mombasa and Voi, they were kidnapped, only to appear in the morgue. People have been killing each other. I know you want to buy a car for 2 million. I just call you. Let's go to Naivasha. I have someone who wants to sell you a car. You go to Naivasha. That's the last time you'll be had. So you see, there have been that group of security personnel who are not answerable to anybody. Even the CIA at the height of the terrorism war, they kidnapped a Muslim guy in Rome who had the bearded of like some of the wanted criminals. It costed the CIA a fortune because that guy was just an innocent man in Rome. And when he appeared in the presidency, he was being taken for prison, you know, in another country. He was not the man they were looking for.
Okay,
so
well noted, Francis, because you have talked about the breach of the law and you said they are not answerable to anyone, they are answerable to the law, and if presented before a court of law, anyone and all Kenyans are equal before a court of law in the country. And what we are talking about, Demes, when we get back from the break, we'll be linking this to our dark present, because the post-election report equally established that the police were involved in the killing of Kenyans in the 2007-8 post-election skirmishes. I'll be citing some of the Waki report, which was detailed, and we'll be taking a look at the formation of IPOA, which was now the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, its roles, whether it lived up to the expectations of Kenyans.
Indeed, the journey to have reforms in the police service. And of course, we'll be talking about whether those reforms have worked for us going forward. This conversation continues right here on Daybreak. Do not go too far. We are coming back with much more. Remember, you can continue engaging us on social media at Safina_Achieng, at Ayub Abdi Kadir, and of course at Citizen TV on social media. The hashtag is Daybreak. Do stay with us. We are just taking a very short break.